Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking all about how to taper for a 10k race. So yes, we are talking about tapering for a 10k race. Now this is very topical for me as I'm doing the London Summer 10k in just 1 week's time. And so round about now is when I start to begin my tapering process. So I thought I'd share my thoughts, my tips and tricks with you guys. We're going to break this video into 4 main parts. We're going to talk about running volume, running intensity, recovery, and then that all-important shakeout run. If you enjoy these kind of videos, please consider hitting subscribe, and if you find this one interesting, smash that like button. So let's talk about reducing your running volume first. Now for me, my running volume is normally around 55 kilometers per week when I'm training specifically for triathlons. However, now I've been focusing more on the 10k distance by itself. I've been pushing it up to around 70k per week. That normally consists of 5 main runs for me. I have a long run, a threshold or a tempo run depending on how I'm feeling that week, a interval session, normally 400s or 600s if I'm on the track, or 600s or 800s if I'm not on the track. Then we have the easy run and a fartlek run, and sometimes I'll do 2 easy runs bringing it up to 6, just depending on how I'm feeling fatigue wise. However, it is a good idea to decrease your total running volume when you're coming up to an event, and this is the main part of tapering. Reducing your running volume significantly reduces the amount of fatigue that you're likely to build during that last week or so building up to a big race. Most of your fitness gains have already been made coming up to that last week before a race. All that training in the weeks and the months before, those hard interval sessions, those difficult long runs, that's where it's going to be made. If you overtrain by doing your normal volume in that last week before the race, you are more likely to increase your time rather than decrease it through extra training. And because you've already built up all that fitness, reducing your volume and tapering won't actually make your time worse. You're likely to make it better. Every individual is different, and different individuals reduce it by a different amount. If you're running a massive amount more than someone like me, you might reduce by a larger proportion, or if you're running less, you might reduce by a smaller proportion. It really can be a trial and error to find out exactly how your body recovers from a large training load. Personally, I normally cut my volume by about 1/3. So a 70 kilometer week, likely to go down to 45 to 50 kilometers, depending on exactly how I'm feeling in each of those runs throughout the week. And don't be shy about reducing it by even more. If you are feeling really fatigued in that week leading up to the race, it's definitely going to be more beneficial to take some time off rather than push yourself through, increase that fatigue level even more and feel absolutely crap coming into race day. And a little tip when calculating your running volume in that tapering week is to make sure you count the race length. I can't tell you the number of times planning my tapering volume I've done a 50 kilometer week Monday to Saturday and then added on a 10k extra on the Sunday because I wasn't quite thinking about what I was doing. Normally, if I'm aiming for 50k, I'll include my race, so my training runs will only be 40k in that week. However, like I said, everyone is individual and you really have to experiment and see how much to reduce by. So on to the second part that really makes up your weekly running training, and that's the intensity of those runs. And we're going to mainly talk about the intervals, whether that be tempo, threshold of 400 meter and 800 meter, whatever that might be. We're talking about the harder parts of the running. Unlike running volume, it is quite important to keep these in your tapering week. Personally, I find if I cut all intensity in my taper, I end up feeling flat and like I don't quite have that pop on race day. You want to make sure that your legs are still familiar with the intensity that you plan to run your race. Otherwise, you're likely to feel stale, and that tempo that you were running before will feel significantly harder than a few weeks before when you were regularly running at that pace. Instead of reducing the pace or the heart you were initially running those intervals at, instead reduce the volume or the number of intervals that you're doing. For example, my tempo run normally looks like 6 by 8 minutes at tempo pace. However, I might cut that down to 4 by 8 minutes at tempo pace, or maybe do 6 by 6 minutes or 6 by 4 minutes at tempo pace. Again, the amount that you reduce the volume of your high intensity intervals is really down to you and how you're feeling each week. Everyone is individually different, and so experiment with it, try out things, especially for smaller races. You can use those to test your taper. And again, don't be scared of cutting a session short. If you feel fatigue really building up and you feel like you're not quite hitting the targets that you wanted to, Often it's better to cut the last 1 or 2 intervals short as soon as you stop dropping off the pace. The most important thing at this point is that you are including some intensity, not necessarily the volume of the intensity. Thirdly, let's talk about recovery. Now, obviously, all year round recovery is incredibly important. It's what allows us to build on the fitness gains that we make in our training. However, in our tapering week, it is even more important because you want to be shedding all of that fatigue that you've normally been carrying throughout regular training weeks. There are a few key ways to improve recovery, which I'm going to touch very briefly on in this video. However, I do have a whole video on improving your recovery, which I'll put in the card just up there. Sleep is one of the most important things you can do to improve your recovery. Ensure you're getting at least 7.5 hours, if not more, and don't be afraid to take naps as they just add an extra level of recovery onto your day. If you regularly stretch outside of your runs, I would consider keeping that up during your tapering week, as it will ensure that your hips and joints are feeling still fresh and not getting too tight. In the same vein, getting a sports massage can be a good idea. However, I wouldn't do this for your first time in the tapering week if you've never had one before. Focusing on good amounts of healthy nutritional food will also improve your recovery, providing your muscles with the glycogen they need to replenish their stores and the protein to repair any damage. And in that last week, it might also be a good idea to avoid alcohol if you don't generally do this throughout your training. Alcohol has been shown to slow the level of recovery and so will definitely impact your race day performance. And the day before, don't necessarily do a massive carb load. This is a shorter race and so you might have enough glycogen in your body, especially if you're planning on bringing a gel or 2 with you. Personally, I just stick with what I normally have, which is a slightly larger portion of either pasta or rice. And finally, let's talk about that all-important shakeout run and whether or not it might be right for you. A shakeout run is generally the run you do either the day before or 2 days before your race. Whether or not you take the day off before your race is a very personal thing, and it really does come down to experimentation. I always do some sort of fartlek run the day before I race. This is mostly easy running. However, I'll do some strides, I'll do some pickups, whatever kind of helps to remind my legs how to run fast and run very effectively. However, if you are newer to running, I might caution against a shakeout run, just as it might add a little bit too much fatigue into the legs. I think the best way to test whether or not you want to do a shakeout run is in your normal training. Do you normally do a shorter or an easier kind of fartlek-y type run the day before you do a really hard tempo or threshold session? How do you feel in that tempo or threshold session? If you generally feel good when you've done an easier session the day before, then definitely a shakeout run. And you can keep trying this, mix it up, try different types of shakeout runs to find exactly what works well for you. But that's it for this video. How do you taper? Tell me your comments down below. Am I missing some key aspect of tapering? Do you think I'm tapering too much, too little? Whatever it is, let me know down in the comments below and I'll read pretty much every single one of them. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, whether that be running, triathlon, or just shoe reviews, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Hit the like button if you found this one interesting, and I'll throw to the 100-mile review of the Saucony Endorphin Speed, the shoe that I'm going to run in at the weekend, and that big old button just there to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing, and I'll see you all in the next one.